Bienvenidos a un nuevo programa de Trascendiendo Fronteras con Kary Light. Esta posibilidad de utilizar Internet para llegar a quienes estén dispuestos a escuchar y poder compartir información con todos ustedes es algo que no me canso de agradecer. Así que bueno, bienvenidos a un nuevo programa. Y hoy tenemos a Maggie Battista desde Estados Unidos. Ella es narradora, estratega, ritualista, mística y practicante de la voz del alma. Y este es el tema justamente que vamos a estar hablando, la voz del alma y lo importante que es poder escucharla. Esta entrevista va a ser en inglés, va a ser grabada en inglés y la vamos a subtitular. Así que los que nos siguen en YouTube van a poder ver los subtítulos sin problema. Quienes nos siguen en podcast tienen la posibilidad de ir a YouTube, al canal de YouTube, y ver el video con subtítulos. Así que sin más preámbulo, entonces vamos a darle la bienvenida a Maggie. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Okay, let's start talking about this soul voice. What is it?
I love that we start there. We start at the meat of it,
Yeah.
the richness of it, right? So I'm going to tell you what the soul's voice is as it's been explained to me by my own soul, right? So the soul's voice is the calm and all-knowing wisdom that surfaces from within when we get really quiet and we listen. We have to choose to get quiet and we have to choose to listen. I believe it is the essence of us. It is the core of the core of the core at the center of our being. And I liken it to our original self. The essence that was birthed into us when we were born on this planet. And then lots of stuff happens to us as humans and we forget. And I have been in a process of remembering over the last 8-ish, 10 years and listening to that voice within. It is not the voice of the mind, though I think it's natural for us to think it is.
Yeah.
It is a voice that surfaces elsewhere in the body, and for each of us, it will be different. For me, it surfaces in the body between the heart and the gut, down around the sacral, down below at the root. But for everyone, it's different, and it's okay. There is no perfect way. It is a wisdom and a guidance that I hear originally. When I didn't ask for it, it just started to surface. And then I started seeking it out and allowing it to speak to me. And I can tell you the whole story, the graduation process from each of the different steps. But that's what it is at its essence. It is our wisdom.
Right, exactly. Well, as you say, the voice of the mind is what we actually listen all the time. And sometimes it's so loud that it's the only thing we can hear. So
oftentimes,
yeah.
right? Oftentimes. And I understand that. I have compassion for that, right? Because we have to survive on this planet with all its structures and systems and processes and needs. And so the mind is constantly thinking about how to get things done for us and keep us safe and make sure that the bills are paid. I get it. I understand it. I love my mind's voice, but it's not the soul's voice. It's very different.
Very different. Well, I usually work on the balance. I'm always saying that we need to keep a balance between our mind, our body, and our spirit. That's the essence of everything. If we find that balance, we can take better decisions. And of course,
totally.
Yeah, the consequences will be much better as well.
Yeah, I also call it our most integrated self. So that is what you're saying, right?
Exactly.
We look at all the parts of us, we allow all the parts of us to have voice, and the soul's voice, for me, brings it all together.
Right. And how you work, I mean, you can hear your own soul's voice, and how you use that to help others.
So I now hear my soul's voice quite often throughout the day. Sometimes I ask it to surface. Sometimes it wishes to surface and it just pops up. I want to make sure it's clear that it's clear to others that it's not really a channeling. Like, I don't think of it that way.
Mhm.
I think of it as just the wisdom within, and I have assigned voice to it. This soul has decided to assign voice to it, right? And the reason the voice was assigned to the soul for me and for so many others is because, at least for me, I'll speak just for myself. I've been going through a deep remembering of what the soul's voice allows, the peacefulness, the prosperity that's allowed when we follow the soul's voice. And what I do is tell stories and reflect messages and insights from my soul's voice so that others can listen and remember for themselves.
Oh.
And that may take the form of me sending you stories, audio stories on your phone, and you get to listen. Or it could take the form of me being a mentor. And we work together one-on-one, and one may share with me what they're feeling, what they're hearing, what stories have come up, what magic they've noticed. And together we siphon through, right? We siphon through it all and we decide what's the soul's voice, what's the real wisdom, and what are all the other voices, right? And how do you get to follow that inner guidance? And I know that it's presented itself to me to not just share what I do with others and help others surface their soul's voice, but I know that the more connected we get to our soul's voice, the more connected we get to source or all that is, or whatever you choose to call it. Some people may call it God, whatever they want to call it. The more we remember that we all want the same things and that we're all connected and that we can, if we so desire, make change in our own lives and the lives of others and on the planet, if we're called to that, right? Yes. And we can do it together. And we can do it together because we have, at our core, we have the same values. When the soul speaks, like if your soul's voice and my soul's voice talked, we want many of the same things. We will use different words, right?
That will be a great conversation.
I've done it with other souls' voices, and it's very interesting and very fun. You know, we have different language, but many of us are sharing the same messages, right? And that is of love and compassion and peace and ease and grace and trust and allowing and not force, not trying so hard, not competing, not hustling, but really finding coherence within and without.
Right.
Does that?
Yeah, of course. Well, one thing that usually happens, at least is what I see, is when you go through a process that helps you find a better version of yourself, and you find some tools that you use and work, I think it's something that you cannot avoid, is to share it with some other people and to tell, well, listen, I did this and that and it worked phenomenal for me. Why don't you try it? I'm happy now. I would love to see you happy as well. No, it's something that we all share. I think that's why we do these programs, because we know some tools that we can share with other people, and maybe it doesn't work for everyone. I mean, we know that what it works for me not necessarily has to work for you or for everyone else, but I know this worked for me and maybe works for someone else. I have to share it. That's it.
I have to share it. It's a calling within to be seen and be heard. And it's interesting, like I have lots of other modalities in my toolbox, right? I do have a therapist and I do have a mentor and I do journal and I do exercise and I do all these other things, breath work, meditation, and all these things are wonderful, right? And many of these things work for me. But over these last 8 years, the soul's voice is the voice that I believe, like, absolutely, more so than anyone outside of me. And so if I have this tool, this key inside of me, I imagine that others do too. So I have to share it so that they can decide if they want to wake it up within
Right.
themselves,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole point. That's the way it should be. I mean, not we used to live in a world that says, well, I made it. I'm sorry, I made it. It's not my problem if you don't do it. No, it's and I'm not going to tell you how I did it because I'm here and I don't want anyone else here with me. No, that's the place we're living now. We're living now, and that is destructive. I mean, it's causing a lot of damage because we live competing all the time. That has to
Totally.
change.
Totally. I'd love to add some nuance to that. At least the way I've witnessed it is, um, I know we all want to help,
Mhm.
right? And oftentimes we want to help others when we haven't even helped ourselves
Yeah.
first,
It's easier.
right? It's easier, right? It's easier to project by helping others and not taking care of this beautiful soul, right? That lives here, that wants to thrive, that wants to allow my thriving. And so the soul's voice has taught me to focus on me first. That does not mean I'm not going to share the tool, that I don't talk about it. I talk about it like crazy with everyone. And yet, there's a fine line. Like, it is not my business what you do with it, right? It
Right.
is up to you to decide what works for you, right? It's my job. It feels like my calling, my purpose to share this and to help. And yet, whenever I'm making something or doing some work or going outside, whatever it is, I always say, okay, the soul's voice would ask me to choose myself and hold myself and soothe myself through those choices. So how am I helping me? Like, you want to help others, but let's first help yourself in all instances so
Mhm.
you can get as integrated, as centered as possible, right? So that I am capacitated enough to be available to others. And people come and they work with me, and what they do with it is what they do with it, right? One of my mentors loves to say, what you do with it is above my pay grade. Like, they
Right.
don't pay me. They don't pay me for that.
That's a good one.
Right? I just show up, just like I showed up today to talk with you, like we showed up with each other, right?
Right, right, right. And emotionally, it's not good at all trying to, um, let's say, I give you some tools and I give you my emotions with it, and I'm waiting to see what you do with that. Because if you don't do the things that I would do with those tools, I'm going to go crazy. No, and that's not good. That is not good at all. So if I have some tools, I'm going to give it to you. And as you say, it's up to you what you do with that.
Yeah, because in essence, it's a kind of control we're trying to
Ex-
exert there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Y-
It
It's
doesn't
a
come from the spirit. It comes from the mind, from the ego. And that
totally.
doesn't help.
And the soul's voice talks about peace, allowing, just doing, like being, right? And so this has been a really great tool for me as well um, to know that, everything happens for a reason and a purpose.
Mhm.
And also, it's not my job to make sure that they're doing this and they're doing that and they're doing that and they're doing that. Like, my job is right here. And then whatever happens, happens.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Well, I think we all start in that place. I mean, we start working with these tools and hoping it does good to others, because if
Yeah.
not, I don't feel good. No, that's the
Right.
beginning. I think we all start there till we find out that that's not our work. That's not what we have to do. That's not what we're here. We have to as you say, we have to try to be our best version to give the best to others, but not running out of running to see if this person or that person is doing what I will do with those tools, because that's impossible. I mean, you can only live one life at a time.
Right. Right. And the soul's voice has taught me that like I nourish myself from within. I'm not saying I don't need people. Of course I
Of
do,
course.
right? But I used to be nourished by external validation and by people saying to me, you know, you did this for me, or you helped me, or you were right. And I'm just like, none of that matters anymore. The more I went within, I feel whole here in this body.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you say, even if they're very difficult words for me to hear, like I will hear them. I will listen. I want you to be seen. I want you to be heard. Like we all want to be seen and heard.
Of course.
And yet, you know, I trust me. I know me, right? I
That's a
listen to
huge
me.
power.
Huge power. It's a huge shift, right? In humanity. If we could all like, and I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. I'm not. I'm human, right? I have
Of
my
course, we
days.
wouldn't be here.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's something that you always I'm always talking about respect. I mean, my reality is different to yours, and it doesn't mean that you're wrong and I'm right. I mean, we're just seeing the life with different eyes, with different
Yeah.
experiences, with different learnings, and my reality is as valid as yours, and vice versa. I mean, and that's
Beautiful.
perfect. That's perfect. I think that's very important, and that's the main things we should learn today in humanity. Start fighting with each other because one wants to have the reason all the time. No, that's not the
Right.
best way to go. We can walk all together and reach farther limits.
Well, I think it does. To do that, it requires people to hold multiple truths at once. And for some, that's really difficult to do because some of us were raised, myself included, that
Yeah,
there's a right and a
most
wrong,
of us. Yes.
right?
Yeah,
Right?
most of us. That's why it depends on our experiences and learnings. We learn to be this way, and to change that, it depends on us, on each of us.
Yeah.
What else? And that's the difficult part. But we're on the right way, I think. We're changing. We're making a lot of changes today. So that's why we're here. We know
Yeah,
that the people need to hear, and we're here to talk.
that's right. I can feel it in the energy that we are shifting, we are awakening, you know, and so that like connection, that energetic connection, that frequency keeps me going, gets me excited, right?
Yeah, and,
So,
and there's a lot of people asking why we didn't do it before. And I think we didn't do it before because we were not ready to understand what we're understanding today. If we talk, if let's say 10 years ago, if we were talking about all this, we should find more resistance than today. Today, a lot of people is much more open to new ideas and
mhm.
try to experiences, to try new experiences. And that's the key, I think, because I can tell you a lot of things, but if you don't live it by yourself, it won't reach you. Yeah.
In fact, you know, my soul's voice, when it started speaking to me, that was one of the first statements I heard. Release resistance.
Ha.
Release resistance. We need you to release resistance.
Mm.
You know, release resistance to things that were happening that you maybe didn't want to happen. They're happening for a reason. Like you are evolving and shifting and growing, and your soul wants different things. And it is okay. You're not bad for that. You're not a failure. You're not lacking in success because you want to not do this anymore and you want to do this. So, literally, I think for 3 or 4 months, it was like release resistance, release resistance. And I would cry through it all. I would hear the soul say release resistance, and the mind, I know it's the mind and the body together would just like be in pain and be in tears. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean, let go? We don't do that. We hold on tight.
Yeah.
We hold on tight. We need
Yeah,
everything to be a certain
I'm
way.
doing everything I'm supposed to do. What are you talking about?
Yeah. But it was really helpful and beautiful to hear those words and hear them at the start of the journey, um, or I wouldn't say it was the start of the journey. It probably was closer to the midpoint of the journey when I actually started following the guidance of the soul. You listen for a while and you might not do it.
Yeah, the mind is in charge, Yeah,
Yeah.
I hear you, but I don't know about that. Yeah.
I don't know about that. What do you mean go out in the woods and take a walk? What are you talking
What?
about? There's like animals out there and mosquitoes and all these things. And I'm just not a person that goes out into nature. And then suddenly I found myself out in nature and I was like, this is
Totally amazed.
beautiful. Whoa. And it was so silent. And then I heard the soul's voice say, hi, welcome.
Finally.
Like,
Yeah.
finally, we needed you here. We needed you out of your house and out of your work environment and out of your car and in the awe and beauty of all that is so that you could hear us.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, this is what you mean. I got it. I will listen now. I will listen,
And how your life changed. What a difference.
Yeah, everything changed. Yeah. Do you want me to tell that?
Tell me. Yeah, let's tell the people. They want to know.
I mean, everything changed. The process of listening to my soul's voice started before the shifts naturally, right? Because I didn't listen for a while. But the soul's voice started surfacing, near the end of my mother's life. And I was like, I don't understand what this is. And I would simply ask the soul's voice questions, like I would write them on a piece of paper and I would listen for the answers and write down the answers. But this process of listening to the soul's voice, like, carried me through the death of both of my parents, carried me through the complete 180, the 100% shift in my work and my business. I literally was in a car accident 2 days before I was supposed to sign over so many things to open up a grocery store in downtown Boston. And I got hit by a car and I was fine. I was fine physically, but not really physically. And I was just like, why did nothing happen to me? What is this message? I'm trying to decipher it. And I really heard that I had to change my entire life, that this path I was on was not the best path for me. Little did I know that 6 months later, COVID, the pandemic, would hit, and I would never be able to repay all that money back. I would never get people into my grocery store, right? And I would be locked into this long-term lease, right? This magic happened for me, right? And I was also available to be able to be there for the end of my mother's life, right? And then as that all happened, I realized that not only were my parents leaving me, my parents left me a year apart, back to back, but my work was changing dramatically, but also my relationship was not what I thought it was.
Mm.
And that's that certainly is about us as a couple, but really what I had wanted in relationship had shifted.
Mm.
And what I was being called to was different than what they were being called to, And so I was trying to fit things that weren't fitting anymore. And that's when the soul's voice came to me and said, release resistance. We need you to release resistance. Like, all these things have to crumble. All these things have to. It was like a tower moment, a real tower moment in tarot, right? And then the
Everything
soul's
is
voice,
falling apart.
everything is falling apart. And of course, they were falling apart so they could fall back together again in a perfect
only,
way.
only with the pieces you needed.
I left everything I didn't need behind, right? I mean, you know, you went from this house full of stuff to this much slimmer life with a lot less stuff so that I could travel and go places and go around the world and talk about this work, and also just experience adventure. Like my soul was screaming for adventure. They were like, I heard like, you're not here to be safe. You're not here to just like clock hours at a job. You're not here to just make more money so that you can buy more things. Like, this is not what you're here for. You're here for adventure. You're here for experience. You're here to really feel alive again. And you have not felt alive in so many years. And we're here to help you extract yourself from this old life, deal with the grief of all that loss, because I didn't grieve. I didn't really grieve when my parents died, right?
Had to keep going.
What was that?
You had to keep going.
You have to keep going, right? That's what everyone has to do. They have to keep going. And yet, if we built in this time to be able to feel, then those emotions don't get stuck in the body and result in like long-term trauma or old blocks or habits that we repeat, things that hold us back. And so I literally let my life fall apart and go through the pain of that, right? And during the critical point, I literally said to my partner and to the people around me, I'm going to do this. We are going to release resistance, but I have to feel every bit of the pain as we go. And we don't take the next step until I feel like I've processed that pain. And that's a big statement to make to people around you, especially to the person that you're disconnecting with, right? But we had enough respect for each other to allow it, right? Because we had been together for 20 years. So we did. And that process of feeling all the feelings was part of what the soul's voice asked me to do. Soul was like, we need you to feel this stuff. This stuff you haven't felt in years. Just feel it. Allow it to move through the body. I started doing breath work and energy work and let that stuff like move itself out of my body, you know, and then the soul's voice got louder and louder and louder to the point that I have a brand new life. I had heard to merge with the ocean in some ways. So I live by the ocean. The ocean's right across the street from me. You know, I had heard to live up high. So I live a few floors above the ground so that I can kind of feel like I'm in a treehouse in some ways, like I'm in nature. I've heard so many things from the soul's voice, so much so that now, you know, what started as journaling or one words or two words like release resistance, now I just sit down in meditation and I can hear the soul's voice wants to share a message, and I'll turn on my recorder and I literally will talk for 30 minutes from the soul's voice. And I don't know half the things that I say sometimes, but I record it and I transcribe it and I say, oh, my soul is so sweet and so tender and wants to hold me through this process and also simplify everything for me. It's not that complicated.
Right. We complicate everything from here.
Totally. It's easy. We want you to be peaceful. Do what feels good, right? Forget all these systems and expectations that are outside of you. None of that matters. What matters is what you want and what you desire. We want you to follow that. And then I started getting even more connected, and not just the soul's voice, but dreams. I would literally have past loved ones, ancestors, spirit guides come to me in my dreams. My higher self has come to me in my dreams. The more we allow the soul's voice to speak, I've discovered the more we get connected to our intuitive gifts, our psychic gifts, our magic, whatever that is. We're all different, right? And we can really lead the magical life that we came here for. Right. Like real magic. Like like things just meeting me and happening for me when I think them up, right? Or feel them, or hear them, So that's a long story, but it was, and I get a little emotional when I retell it because
I
I
feel it.
feel so much, I feel so much for that sweet mind, for that sweet girl,
Of course, you decided to hear, and then your life changed totally. Everything changed in your life, and now you're living a much different life than the one you thought it was okay. I mean, this is, yeah, I'm fine. This is
Yeah,
what I was supposed to do, but something's not quite right. What's missing here? And now you say,
yeah,
wow, all that was all that was so wrong. I didn't see it. I was there, and now I'm in a totally different place and living life, actually feeling it, as you say.
yeah. Feeling it, feeling everything, leading with my feelings, right? Allowing them to hold me, whatever they are, right? And does that mean that I feel goodness? Of course. Does that mean when something tough happens, I feel grief? Of course. But
Right.
I allow it. I allow it all, right? That's what we're here for, humans, to experience the wide spectrum of emotions, right? Um, and we've been conditioned away from that. Society has conditioned us away from feeling anything.
There are many programs that we receive from the moment we start in this existence. Everything that we learn through our own lives and everything that we are bringing all the time from our parents, grandparents, and all that, the family has a huge weight on our existence. So when we start finding what is actually ours and what doesn't correspond to to the life we want to live, there's where when the real works starts. And
I
it's
mean,
not an easy journey, not an easy one.
it's not an easy journey to choose many years after their death to to have a conversation with my parents and to reconcile what happened, right? And to allow them to apologize and to allow me to apologize, right? And to hear their explanations in many ways. I worked with a facilitator to do this.
Mhm.
Um, but it almost doesn't matter if I'd worked with anyone. Like I could be journaling with my parents and just imagine what their answers could be, right? Like we all have the capacity to do this. And that's when I did a lot of real healing work. Like when you can reconcile, when you can understand and reconcile the mother wound and the father wound, right? And understand what it did, like what it created, caused you to feel, like all those things that happened. Oh, that's a message to me that this is important. So when you can reconcile the mother wound and the father wound, the masculine wound, the feminine wounding, like that, the soul's voice can help you do that and help you like really become this most integrated self that allows all of it to be. Like we can allow all the terrible stuff that happened to us. We can allow it, right? We don't live from it. We don't react from it, right? We don't let it drive us, right? We just feel it and we allow it and we all say our sorries. I'm sorry, and then we get to move on and make new decisions, right?
Exactly,
So
exactly. Stop resistance, because that doesn't take us anywhere.
it doesn't.
Yeah.
Release resistance, release resistance. That's what it said. So yeah.
Amazing. And okay, so that's the story of how you got to really really listening to your soul's voice. Now, when or how did you start um, learning about the Mayan calendar? How do you find that information?
Well, the more you allow the soul's voice to guide you, and the more you lean into your emotions and feelings and understand them and integrate them, process them, the more space you make within for what's meant for you to find you, you know? And so I realized that in doing a lot of reconciling with my parents, I also created deeper bonds with my grandparents and my great grandparents. Like I could feel the connection, I could feel it be stronger. And there was a day last year when I felt this tremendous rush of energy through my body. And suddenly, like, I opened my phone and it said, like, Mayan sacred calendar, Mayan cosmology. I was on the internet somewhere, like searching something. I don't know what it was. And suddenly I got this rush of energy that said, you have to know everything that there is to know about the Mayan sacred calendar. And I said, what are you talking about, soul?
Now
I
what?
don't I don't understand. Like, I follow you and I followed you to a beautiful life, but like the Mayan sacred calendar. So I went ahead and I scheduled a reading with an Aki, a spiritual guide, a Mayan spiritual guide, who later became my teacher. And I couldn't meet with him for a few weeks because I got sick. I think I got sick with something, so I couldn't meet with him for a few weeks. So about 2 weeks before I met with him, I had once a year, I have a meeting with a facilitator that helps me connect with my loved ones and just, you know, it feels like an energetic clearing for me to be able to talk with them. And she connected with my loved ones, and all of a sudden, my great grandmother, Josefina, comes to the front of the pack and, you know, in a visual, hands me something. And and the facilitator says, we're handing you, your great grandmother wants to give you something in your work to use your work, to do your work. And I said, okay, what is she giving me? And they said, she's giving you an obsidian blade. And I said, an obsidian blade? I don't know. I've never used obsidian. I don't know why. I have no idea, but thank you. I thank you. You know, I just acknowledged it and said, thank you. And she said, you will understand why soon. And I said, okay, whatever. And I went around with my life and I was sick and I got better. And I met with the Mayan spiritual guide. And he said to me, you know, that day that you had that big rush of energy? I said, yeah. He goes, that was your Mayan birthday. And I said, whoa, I didn't know that. I had no idea. And he said, oh, and your core energy is Tihash. And I said, Tihash, tell me everything I need to know about Tihash. And he said, well, Tihash is the energy that wants to bring the divine into humanity. And they cut out the disease, what's not needed, so that only the purest, the truth is left. And I said, okay. And how do they do that? And he said, well, they use an obsidian blade. And I said, are you kidding?
You said what?
Are you kidding me? And he said, I said, what would you do if I told you that my great grandmother came to me in an exercise and gave me an obsidian blade 2 weeks ago? He said, I would tell you that you're right on time. Let's go.
Right.
Let's go. Like it's time. Like you've been activated. Let's go. And so I started studying the sacred calendar, and I could hear the energies of the calendar. There are 20 core energies, nawales, and there are 13 sacred numbers of the calendar. And they go around like a spiral, like a DNA spiral. And I started learning it. And I learned, as I learned it, that the sacred calendar and the energies in the calendar can share with you, with any of us, the energies present in your past, present, and future that were like gifted to you, given to you, to your soul when you were born.
Huh?
so that your soul can navigate this existence. So it's like a map in many ways to navigate your existence. And your soul chooses these energies in many ways. And so I was like, okay, I'm working with the soul's voice. This is all starting to make more sense. And so I'm still a student of it. I will probably be a student of it for a very, very long time, to really feel in communion with the energies. But the energies talk to me, and I do Mayan cross readings. So if someone comes to me and says, I'd love for you to read my Mayan birthday, I'm able to tell them, well, here's what your soul chose. This energy, this energy, this energy, and likely this and this. Here's the wounding in the feminine. Here's the wounding in the masculine. Like, this is what you're navigating. And so they can understand the energies that are present so that they can decide to use their own soul's voice to navigate.
I have to do that. Sure. I have to do that. I want that.
It's a really, when I learned the energies of the sacred calendar, it was like a puzzle piece that got fit into place for me.
Right.
And I remember asking one Tata, why does the calendar speak to me? I don't understand. And he said, it's because you're Mayan. Like, you're Honduran, you're Mayan. Much of Honduras was Mayan.
It's on your
you know, it's your lineage. It's
right.
part of you, and it's activating you now. And that's okay. Like, that's okay. Of course you can hear the energies. I'm like, oh, got it.
This is just the beginning.
And it's just the beginning. Yeah, I think it would be many years of study, right? In fact, this weekend, I'm going into fire ceremony this weekend, because the spiritual guides honor the sacred calendar, express gratitude, ask for support through fire ceremony. And my teacher from Guatemala is going to be in the United States. And so this weekend, I'll be in fire ceremony. I don't know when this episode goes live, but I'll be in fire ceremony this weekend. So it's a process, and I'm learning, and I love it. And I was able to look up your birthday. If you want to know a few things.
Of course I want to know. Tell me all about it. What do you have?
Well, I wasn't able to do your full Mayan cross.
We'll
but
do it later. Don't worry about it.
Okay, we'll do it another time. But in short, your Gregorian birthday, I'm not going to announce it, but your Gregorian birthday converts into a Mayan sacred birthday of 10 Canil. And Canil is Q''Anil. I've learned the pronunciations in Quechuan, which is a dialect of there are so many different groups who study practice Mayan spirituality, and Quechuan is one of them. It's what I learned. So you are 10 Canil, and I would say that if the sacred calendar and its numbers are like really associated with the human body. And in 10 is said to represent the fingers of two hands coming together. So it represents community. So I don't know if community as society, the laws of society, like working in cooperation is important to you, but that is 10 is important. So people generally born with 10 are stable, cooperative, and community-minded. So 10 is important. The sacred number is important. I could tell you lots about 10, but I think it's very interesting to talk about Canil, which is your core Nawal, because it is considered the gardener energy of the calendar. It's considered the ripening of the seed. It brings the crop to maturity. So some people consider it ripening, fertility, abundance, talent. And Canil shines really brightly in the field, of course, like in the gardens, in the fields, but it's a Nawal of farmers, gardeners, herbalists, people who love to tend up to plants at home. But in general, you shine, like you possess an ability to shine, and your talent shine. There's a beautiful goldenness that illuminates you when you come into contact with people. So like when you enter a room, you generally light up a room. That's
Wow.
considered one of the energies of Canil. This energy is all about fulfilling your potential, like achieving your fullest potential in relation to your activities. And I'm going to say in relation to community because of the 10 that presents before it. It has an affinity for the arts, but it's generally just like a very bountiful day. And there's just a lot of fertility and prosperity around you. So it's like you have a golden touch in many ways. You probably have an infectious laugh or light up a room in some way. You can ask your partner or your family about that.
Yeah, well.
Um, but it's a really beautiful energy. Like, and there are high expressions and low expressions of every energy, but I'm just sharing the high expression, the highest expression. But it's a beautiful, like fertile, abundant energy that is your present, that is your core adult energy. And when we do the Mayan cross, I can share your past energy and what came in from your ancestors and your parents. I can share your future energy, what will come. And I can share the energy present in the masculine and the feminine, not just within you, but how you relate to the masculine and the feminine and like what you bring out in each other. So that's what the Mayan cross does. And, I was able to take my Mayan cross and just sit with it and be like, okay, I understand some of the challenges I've had. I understand some of my purpose, right? So I'm curious, how does that land with you? How does it, like, that energy feel to you?
What can I tell you? Kary Light.
Mm,
Yeah,
there you go.
right.
You are light.
Amazing. I have chills. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to hear much more about this. So we're going to do the whole 9 yards. That's for
Okay.
sure. Okay, we're going to leave all the information to contact you on the description. So everyone who wants to know more about all this can get in touch with you and talk to you about all this amazing information you have shared with us. And I have no idea how much time has passed. We love to talk. So, well, we said what needed to be said, and whoever needs to hear this will do. I'm sure about that, and I'm thankful for it. So, I thank you very much for your time. I hope we can share again. There's a lot of things that we can keep sharing with the audience, and I'm sure I enjoy it. I don't know, but I feel that you too. So
I enjoyed it too, and I'm always happy to speak again. It's really fun and beautiful to like have these conversations with you. So thank you.
thank you. Okay, is there something else you would like to say to the audience?
Wow, that's a big one. Um, a theme today, a lot of people have come to me and um, you know, what I've heard today and what I'm hearing again now, it just keeps popping up. It's like the soul's voice keeps bringing me this word. I guess I want to say what it's saying to me, which is like, if you are at a crossroads, if you are wondering what to do next, if you are going through challenging times, if you feel like your life may be falling apart, in order to fall back together again, the word that keeps coming up to me is begin. Begin. Whatever it is, whatever you're called to, begin. Let this be your sign to begin if it feels good, if you feel ready. So that's what I'd love to leave with all of you, if that's okay.
Oh yes, thank you. I receive it with my heart, really. So it's good for me, and I know it's good for a lot of people there listening to this podcast or watching this video. And well, I'm going to thank you again, and we'll meet next time. Thank you.
Thank you.